Yeah, well, I just wanted to make a comment. Another bonus with the alt tags is that, like, we deal a lot with handicapped people, and a lot of our customers are disabled or handicapped,
Yeah.
and they might be using voice recognition software, things of that nature, and they can't see the picture, but the voice recognition software will read the alt tag to the person viewing
Yep.
the site. So
Yeah, I mean, in order to be ADA compliant on a website, you need to use alt tags. And also, Flash, same thing. If there's information in a Flash movie, unless it's talking, they're not going to be, someone who's visually impaired is not going to be able to engage with that site. So it's just sort of being a good neighbor, web person, because it ends up being SEO friendly, and also, as you said, has the added benefit of being useful to one of your constituents. So these are some areas of your site where people typically forget to put stuff in copy as well as graphically.
That helps. The alt tags will help for the search engine?
The alt tags help a little bit. They become tiebreakers, essentially. So if there's two pages with everything else exactly the same and one has an alt tag that helps the engine understand what that page is about, it'll sometimes just kick you over the edge. So it's worth doing.
Name, if it's only on a logo right now?
Well, a company name, usually clients do pretty well on their company name. I was just using that as an example of where people forget. But there's usually somewhere else on your page, your About Us page or your home page, where you have your company name. Alt tags came up a couple of times already, but here's the slide that talks about it. An alt tag helps the search engine understand a whole lot of things. It helps it understand what that image is about, but it also helps understand what the page is about potentially. Because if there's not enough content, or again, it's a tiebreaker, it's trying to understand which page is more about whitewater rafting, and one has a picture that it can't view the picture, but that picture is alt tagged whitewater rafting. It might say, yeah, I think this one probably should deserve a little position higher. So make sure you use alt tags. For a while, frames were in vogue, and unfortunately, there was a byproduct of frames which was extremely negative from a search marketing perspective, which was that search engines would even sometimes find pages that were within a frame set, and they'd index them, but if you ever came to that page, you couldn't get anywhere from it. Because for those of you who remember how frames work, right, there's a navigational part of the frame, and then there's the body copy part of the frame. And so even if you happen to be lucky enough to get your body copy portion of the frame indexed, because it somehow found that piece of the frame, person clicks in on that link, gets to the inside part of the frame, and they're like, okay, what do I do now? Right? They'd have to be smart enough to go up to the URL and like delete everything back to the main directory and hit enter, and then they'd get the frame set would rebuild itself, and then they could navigate. Well, how many people have the patience or knowledge to do that? So frames are bad. That's frames and Flash both can kill a website. So you don't want the dead ends. You don't want the orphan pages. So don't use frames. If you got frames, try to figure out how to do it with tables or CSS instead of with frames. We talked a little bit earlier about no Flash navigation. Flash is okay. You can use it on your site. Just don't put your navigation or significant amounts of content embedded within your Flash, because the search engines can't read what's going on within the Flash movie. So go easy on the Flash and use it correctly. It's a powerful tool. You just need to know when and where to use it, how to execute it. Crawlability and site architecture. If the search engine spider can't find the content that you already have, then it's as good as invisible. So you want to make sure that your site is very crawlable to the search engines. So how do spiders find their way to your content? Well, they follow links. That's the way that they get from point A to point B. They actually act just like a human would, just clicking around on links. They really like text links a lot, but they'll follow image links too. They'll follow anything that's got a link in it that they can find. But links that are embedded in JavaScript, it can't find, because the browser is actually what executes JavaScript. Your Internet Explorer or your Firefox or Netscape, whatever you're using, That's actually what's running the JavaScript and allowing a human to find that link and move to the next page. But the search engine spiders don't run JS files, and they don't run JavaScript that's in the HTML. So they can't find those links. It's one of the most common problems with SEO, with search friendliness and crawlability, is that the designer found some really cool navigation JavaScript with a flyout where it flies out into multiple layers. And that's usually not readable to the search engine. So it's readable to the human, but it's not readable to Google, MSN, or Yahoo. Lack of a sitemap is a similar challenge. You had a question?
About the sitemap. Any
Yep.
feedback so far on using the Google sitemap? Does it really help on Google? Or
It doesn't help. There's no evidence. Google has a new sitemap feature where you can basically feed an XML document into Google, which is supposed to sort of be the equivalent of having a sitemap. I haven't found that it certainly doesn't impact ranking. What it potentially does, it just alerts Google to the validity of that page. Yes, that page is there. If it already knew about it, it validates that it's there, and it gives you sort of a little bit of, again, in a tiebreaker environment, it's not going to give you more position, but it just may give you a little bit more visibility when you do show up. So it's worth playing with if you've got the tech resources to be able to use it. I don't know. I don't think it's going to move the needle much, but it might move the needle a little bit. CGI form navigation also is a big problem in the HTML of navigability. You'll see it all the time when you're on websites. They have the pull-down menu that leads you around to different points of the site. Most of those executions are written in such a way that the Google can't read the destination, of that. Again, Google is not going to execute that. It's not going to push the next button. It's not going to execute that form. It's not going to execute the CGI the same way that it doesn't execute JavaScript. So it's not going to find those pages. So if you do have those drop-down menus or pull-down menus as a way to navigate, make sure you have an alternate way to get to those pages. Because it's okay to have those if you just like them, but don't have them as your primary ways to get around.
So you're saying on your homepage, if you've got like press or something like that, you've got 4 or 5 button things to drop down.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to understand those drop downs.
Right. In almost every case, it won't understand the drop-downs. There are ways that Google, but not Yahoo or MSN, Google will understand it if you put the entire URL in some of the pull-down menus. If you put the entire destination URL in there, the Google engineers made it, because so many people are using it, the Google engineers figured out how to make it understand that. It still doesn't prefer them. So I still don't recommend you use that as your only way of navigating. If you still want to keep them there, just create a secondary method, somewhere in a sitemap or somewhere else on the page, in the footer, somewhere else. The other things that really help crawlability is a concept called breadcrumbs. For very large sites in particular, this actually, dynamic sites that get fed out of databases work really well with breadcrumbs, because you usually have a database schema that talks about categories and subcategories and sub-subcategories and sub-sub-subcategories. And even though there's sometimes a triple subcategory belongs in 2 categories, you can still pick a primary pyramidal path. So what I mean by that is that on eBay, if you look at the Cuisinart food processor category, you look at that page, you'll see a breadcrumb trail that a human can see and a search engine spider can see, and can understand how that Cuisinart food processor category belongs in the overall schema of the site, right? So it tells you that it's in home and garden, kitchen, small appliances, food processors. You can see that right there on the page, and that navigational breadcrumb is a way for both humans who want to drill up the next level to navigate, but it's also really good for search engines, because now search engines just understand from that they can sort of intuit the entire site structure. If they find a page deep down, they'll understand how it fits into the scheme. About.com, which actually used to be a Prime Media property but recently became a New York Times property, does the same thing with their restaurant reviews. So, if you follow from the New York restaurant reviews up, you can see in the breadcrumb, they've got a site structure that's around that. And actually, we'll talk a little bit more about why that's important when we talk about linking.